Let's talk about healthy food choices and healthy eating.
You mean clean eating?
How did you get in here? I am the internet. I never left. So now that you realize that clean eating is total bunk, now you needed to invent a new term for it and call it healthy eating? Well, I think most people using the term clean eating didn't mean some silly concept like food hygiene or that some foods will wipe your body clean. But since I realized that there's all kinds of diet trends and cults which have their own biases and preferences, I thought I might as well use a more general term like healthy food choices. But there is no such thing as healthy and unhealthy food. Even that term is so subjective. It is true that in isolation no food will make you healthy or unhealthy, but there are foods which provide a lot more nutritional value with the calories they provide, and if they dominate your diet, they will contribute to much better overall health than other foods. You could have a diet with the perfect calorie and macronutrient balance, but if you're eating Doritos and protein shakes and a fiber supplement, then that is just not a healthy diet, I'm sorry to say. Didn't you hear from Professor Mark Haub? He went on the Twinkie diet. He ate cereals, Twinkies and Oreos while all his blood parameters and health profile improved. That includes his cholesterol profile and blood lipids. And not to mention, he lost a whole bunch of weight. Yes, I've heard of that study. I think that study is a perfect demonstration of the fact that being overweight or obese is just so unhealthy for your body that pretty much anything that will get you out of that state is going to improve your health, even if it means involving junk food, Twinkies, and Oreos. I think this study demonstrates that being not overweight while eating junk food is still better for you than being overweight and eating healthy foods. However, I think if two people were to maintain a similar level of leanness while one of them was eating a diet mainly consisting of junk foods while the other one was eating wholesome healthy foods, the health outcomes would not be the same. Okay, but you must at least admit that for getting lean and ripped, it doesn't matter what you eat. You can get just as lean and ripped eating junk food. Definitely, you can get lean and shredded and ripped while eating only junk foods, and you can put on a lot of body fat while eating whole healthy foods. The only caveat I would throw in there is that if you want to lose weight while eating a lot of junk foods, that in general will mean a lot of hunger and less satiety. So if you're willing to trade in some hunger for all those yummy foods, then by all means do it. Well, I think there's a lot of benefit to including some more flexibility in your diet as it reduces cravings. Well, for some people it might. If you're one of those individuals who is completely satisfied by eating only 2 cookies and don't have the urge to eat the whole bag, then more power to you. However, I think for a lot of people, always teasing themselves with a small amount of junk will just ramp up their cravings even more. In fact, there is a lot of evidence showing that your general preferences and behavior in terms of diet and food choices can be altered by your general behavior. So if you indulge in a certain food less and less, then your cravings for it will over time disappear. So if you exclude a certain food altogether, over time you will crave it less and less. Anyway, all I want to say is that getting too caught up in this idea of clean versus not clean food causes disordered eating. While I'll agree that developing an all or nothing mindset around food is not a healthy behavior, simply deciding rationally to exclude a certain food is not disordered eating. Disordered eating is determined by your mental approach, not your dietary preferences. If you just decide that you don't include a certain food, that doesn't mean you have an eating disorder. If you decide that eating a non-whole or junk food is a sin, and if you do it you might as well binge, that is a disordered behavior. But if you just decide rationally that you're not going to include a certain food, that is a completely okay decision. That is not an eating disorder. Okay, I think you don't understand me. Thinking of foods in terms of good and bad causes eating disorders. Funny enough, there is actually some evidence showing that thinking about foods in terms of good and bad can make it easier to stick to your diet. Using visual or cognitive cues to associate feelings of disgust or repulsion with certain foods can make them appear less and less appealing in your mind. Great. So you're saying that we should demonize food groups, set people up for binary thinking? You know what? In my experience, this causes binge eating even when they do just a minor slip up. No, I would definitely not say that we should demonize foods. People should definitely understand that no matter how processed a certain food group might be, if you're not overeating on it, then you're not going to gain fat. I'm just saying that in terms of adherence, it might not be a bad idea to call certain foods what they are, processed crap. And those foods should not dominate your diet if you want to live a healthy lifestyle. That's all. But when you're doing IIFYM and flexible dieting, there is no such thing as a cheat meal. Oh, hell yes there is. Are you saying that you don't know the difference between eating a slice of pizza and the whole thing? Okay, maybe in the short term, people can get away with eating only certain foods. But over the long term, being able to track and inject a lot of flexibility in your diet is the way to go. Over time, you have to gravitate towards flexible dieting. I would actually argue the other way around. I think people would be better off first adapting a tracking-based method to understand the energy density and calorie content of certain foods. This would also prevent them from creating the halo effect around certain foods and prevent them from perceiving certain foods to contain less calories than they actually do just because they're healthy. In other words, they would not fall for the fallacy that it is impossible to overeat on certain foods just because they're nutritious and healthy. Hashtag nuts, hashtag peanut butter. And on a different note, I think in an ideal world, we would all eat foods based on hunger and satiety signals and still stay lean. And guess what? It is possible, but only if we are mostly eating whole, quote-unquote, clean foods. It is only an impossibility if we are routinely including a lot of processed junk foods in our diets. Alright boys, stop fighting. I think for the listeners, we should sum this thing up and clear up a couple of points. One, no matter what kind of healthy or unhealthy foods you're eating, in excess they will cause fat gain, and if you're in a caloric deficit, they will cause fat loss. Two, there are unquestionably foods that will contribute to better overall health if they dominate your diet than other foods. This in practice basically means that less processed foods generally promote better health than more processed foods. Three, including small amounts of junk food in your diet on a regular basis will relieve the cravings for some people, but for others, it may ramp it up even more. Some people are just better suited for moderation than others. And in my experience, people who are most rabid about eating everything in moderation instead of excluding them altogether are just taking their own personality type as the default that everybody should be able to operate by. 4, making the rational decision to cut out a certain food altogether because you just can't seem to be able to eat it in moderation is a completely fine decision and does not constitute an eating disorder or orthorexia. It's a completely legit and in fact highly mature decision to make that requires great self-awareness. And finally, number 5, I would definitely not agree that tracking all your food all the time is some kind of super advanced end goal that everybody should aim to reach. Conversely, I think most people over time should be able to reach a point where they do all the things that they learned through macro tracking on autopilot, and they select the foods that they know will make it possible for them to maintain their ideal body composition. As some smart person in the fitness industry said, learn to track your macros so you don't have to track your macros for the rest of your life. And with these key points, thank you for your attention and see you guys next time.